Welcome to Career Tools. This is Wendy.
And this is Kate.
Today's cast, how to leverage your MTDISC style for career growth for high Ds.
The questions this cast answers are, how can a high D adapt their natural style to achieve greater career success? What strategies can high D personalities use to overcome their blind spots? And how can high Ds break through career plateaus?
If you want the answers to these questions and more, keep listening.
Hey folks, just to make sure it's clear, because hey, Manager Tools is not about marketing, we can create custom training for your organization beyond the core well-known programs. With a wealth of expertise, we can design meaningful and effective training to address your organization's unique needs and challenges. We can do it on-site or virtually. And if your request falls outside of our wheelhouse, we'll be upfront and let you know. If you have a specific need or your managers are missing a critical skill, give us a call. We'd be happy to discuss how we can support you. That's what we're here for. Contact us at customerservice@manager-tools.com.
Career growth comes from two things, both leveraging your strengths and at the same time managing and mitigating your weaknesses, all of those things that work against you. And everybody has a wide array of strengths, but trying to decide which of them to use in pursuit of your career or to actually grow your career rather than the skills you use, particularly for a skill to create some project or finish some piece of work, is more difficult just because there's so many things we could use. Like, where do we start? So in this podcast, we're going to just describe 4 targeted strategies that work with your natural tendencies if you're a high D. And we're going to explain in a second what DISC is and what a high D means. But we're going to choose 4 strategies that work with your natural tendencies to accelerate your career growth.
Yeah, we're going to talk about 5 things. We're going to provide a quick introduction to DISC because you may not be aware. We're going to talk about setting specific goals, focusing on the details, getting feedback, and working on collaboration, which for a high D can be challenging.
It can. And yet it's one of those things that really accelerates everything, because if you can get over that weakness, it changes everything. As a high D.
Yeah, since we're both high Ds, we can attest to it.
Yeah. So if you don't know what DISC or MTDISC is, let's just quickly describe that for you so you have a context. DISC is a behavioral assessment tool that uses 2 axes to identify a person's preferred way of communicating and working. The first axis is assertive and reserved. So assertive at one end, reserved at the other. And the other axis is task-focused and people-focused. So task-focused at one end and people-focused at the other. People who are assertive, like high Ds, speak loudly and quickly. They make large gestures. And if they walk into a room, they think they can change everything that's happening in that room. They have the power. The people who are more reserved speak more cautiously. They speak more slowly and quietly. They make small gestures. And they believe that one person's wants don't outweigh the needs of the many. So in a conference room, for example, they won't try and change the temperature to their preference, because as long as everybody else is happy, that's better. The high Ds and Is are assertive, and the S's and C's are the reserved types.
On the other axis, there are people who are focused on the tasks to be done. They will ask what needs to be done and get it done and mentally check it off the list, and they love to do that. Whereas people-focused individuals ask, who is here? And they take the time to connect and understand and chat before they begin work. High Ds and Cs are task-focused, whereas Is and S's are people-focused. So then we put the 2 axes together. High Ds, which we're going to talk about today, are assertive and task-focused. High Is are assertive and people-focused. High S's are reserved and people-focused, and high C's are reserved and task-focused. And today we're going to talk about high Ds, and then in subsequent weeks, we're going to cover the other profiles. So just today, one, and upcoming episodes, we'll have our other profiles. And hopefully you know your profile so you can pick the right one of these to listen to. Or maybe you're helping your team and like others around you if you're here as a high S.
Right. I would suggest that even if you're not a high D, that you listen anyway, because it helps you understand those high Ds on your team and where they're coming from and what their strengths and weaknesses are and how you can work better with them. If you don't know what your profile is, then go to the Manager Tools website, look for MTDISC in the navigation menu. You can take your profile right then. It'll take 20 minutes and you'll know all sorts of things about yourself that you never realized. And also in the report, you'll get a bunch of things, a bunch of information about how to work better with other people on your team. So do that first. You'll find out what you are. Also, listening to this, you'll probably find out what you are because you'll think, these people are mad, or of course this makes sense, in which case you're definitely a high D.
It's very specific to your mindset. Absolutely.
It is. So for the high Ds, our first piece of guidance is set specific goals, which might seem odd because high Ds definitely set goals and want to achieve them.
Yeah, it's pretty part of the it's a daily thing.
Right. That's their strength, and we want to use this in pursuit of your career growth. Because sometimes we set goals and we go after them, but we don't actually think of the big picture.
Sure.
Our natural, I'm going to say our, because as I said, I'm a high D too. High D's naturally assertive and task-focused nature means that we see a goal and we just go for it. And that approach works a lot of the time. That's why we use that strength, because it works for us and we rely on it.
The thing is, if you're not paying attention, though, too, high Ds can get distracted by the daily goals that pop up. So if you're doing something and you see the opportunity to set a goal, you will. And you can almost, I think, be kind of, I keep thinking of like being pecked to death by ducks, because all those little goals that you're putting energy into, they satisfy the serotonin.
Yes. I check something off.
Yes. So that natural, okay, I want to have a goal and achieve it. It's a great like push the button for a treat thing for a high D. And you can leverage it, or you can end up utilizing it on things that don't get you any further. I specifically, having just come off a long time out of the office, found that I will absolutely set a goal for something that does no actual benefit. Like, oh, I'm going to organize something. And that feels really super good. Now, that's a benefit. I will say that. However, it's not an overall benefit to your career or the world or your goals, etc. So you got to watch out for that. You got to watch out for setting a goal around, shelving books or something, when you really should be setting goals for your actual career.
Yes, exactly. That's the downside of that natural drive. So let's talk about some positives first and make the high Ds feel good. So our decisive nature makes us the perfect person in a crisis. And that can be a distraction too. If there's a crisis, I want to be the one solving it. Doesn't matter that it's nothing to do with my job and there's someone better to do it. But in a crisis, I want to be there. Other people are still analyzing options, and you have already implemented the solution.
Speed.
Yeah. Your ability to cut through indecision saves teams hours of circular discussions sometimes. Other people in the team can still be talking about the 15 options and you've already decided one, implemented it, and it's done and you've moved on. You're the one who gets on and launches the product at minimum viable product. You don't worry about things being perfect. You create momentum, whereas others might stay in the planning stages forever. So definitely, high Ds, we have value and there are things that we do well.
Yes, it's really, truly great that there is a profile that just gets stuff done. It's necessary. And if you are a self-aware high D, you may have noticed that sometimes you have to backtrack. So you're getting really far ahead of things. The action you rushed into didn't lead to where you wanted it to actually go. Sometimes you forget to take everybody else with you when you're moving forward. A lot of stuff gets done in my real life, in my personal life, without the other people who live here knowing that it's happening. So I've definitely been that person. You end up standing at the finish line alone, wondering why it wasn't successful or nobody noticed. Other times you might not even reach the finish line because someone presents another goal and you get distracted and go after that. So we have to focus this skill into areas that are useful, helpful, value add, instead of just getting stuff done, which feels so good. So instead of the idea of just going for it with no structure, we're going to recommend that you take a little time, make a plan, think about how you're going to get there, how you're going to take everyone with you, write down your steps. This few minutes of foresight will prevent you from doing a lot of work that doesn't necessarily get you what you want. Because, yeah, we know high Ds have more energy than everybody else. And there's really just no point in wasting it, right? Don't let that, oh my gosh, I would love to get something done mentality lead you to spend your energy on things that isn't going to move the needle.
Exactly. And it slows you down in the beginning when you're most excited and it feels like a waste. But actually writing down the goal and writing out the steps to get there, whether you do it on paper or a document or task management system, whatever you do, it forces you to think through whether the action will actually get you where you want to go. My dad is here and I said to him, I want a shelf in the laundry room. And my dad is a high C, he thinks things through. And I said, I want a shelf, let's go to Lowe's. And he was like, well, wait a minute, is there anything to put, are there studs there that you can put the shelf onto?
Did he want to measure things?
He did want to measure things too. Yeah, like how big does wood? I hadn't thought of any of those things. And I would have got to Lowe's, bought a post of wood, come home and thought, oh, actually, I need brackets and I need something. And sometimes thinking through the plan is a good thing.
If you're a high D, what I have discovered around this issue, the feeling that spending time thinking through it is a waste of my time and loving just jumping in. Easy fix. 2 things. Make the first step of every goal initiative that you're going to go through to write it down, what's going to happen, and then time constrain it. Say to yourself, okay, the first thing is I got to write all this down. I'm only going to spend 5 minutes, depending on the size of the goal.
Right.
I'm only going to spend 15 minutes thinking it through. And then you get that feeling. You still get that feeling because you're already checking the first box, which is, okay, write something down. And the second box being, okay, and I'm only going to spend this much time writing it down. So then you get to create the momentum. That's how I do it. That's how I fix my, let's just get this done thing. Because I will tell you, I also live with a person who likes to measure things. I could have had it done and be doing something else when by the time the person who works on these projects with me starts to think about getting out the tape measure. And oof, high Ds, our love for speed is strong. It might be the strongest love we have, ironically. Okay. Because we're here to talk about career growth. And career growth is long. I mean, it doesn't take the 10 minutes that all of the things that I want to get done take. It's something you do over months or years. And in order to get the push the button treat feeling, you got to have smaller sub goals based on the things you decided will help keep you on track.
And having those smaller goals also helps other people. It brings other people along with you. There's nothing like going to your boss and saying, I have a great idea, I'm going to do this. And then saying, well, how are you going to measure that? And what's going to happen with this and that and the other? And then you feel so deflated about your great idea because you didn't think about all of these questions. And so having this, even if it's a handwritten Post-it note with 3 things on it, helps other people coming along with you. And we know, because we are both high Ds, you can do it all on your own. You could run this organization by yourself. Like, absolutely. But actually, working in an organization means bringing other people along with you and having that little, it doesn't have to be formal, but having thought through the steps helps bring people along with you.
Yes. So remember, because you're in an organization, that you need that. You need people to come with you. And this pause, this kind of it's not so much a pause as a reflection. It is part of the process. So it is another checkbox. This checkbox will give you the chance to ask yourself if what you want to achieve is aligned with the organization and is something that's going to move your career in a different direction, right? It helps you to know which way you're pointing. But the more often that the two things coincide, the more likely it is you'll be successful within the organization as well as in your own goals and your own thought processes. So if you're thinking about your career as moving upwards in your own organization, then it's really important to align these tasks, these goals, all this forward motion with what the organization needs as well. And sometimes that just means with what your boss wants.
Yeah.
So there's that consideration. We're coming to Chicago. July 8th through 10th, we will be in Chicago. We're hosting an EHM, EMC, and ECC event, which includes effective hiring, management, and communications trainings. If you're in the area or just in the Midwest, it's an opportunity to learn the next steps to being a more effective professional, better hiring, management, and communication. And you can meet some other professionals from the area. We love coming to Chicago, and we'd really love to see you there too. Sign up at manager-tools.com/training.
We've slightly focused our energy. The next thing is the difficult one. Focus on the details. And the details are boring to you, us, but other people, other styles review and judge your work based on the details. Those styles that are really focused on the details, like the high C, think that your attention to detail is the measure of how much you care about a project. When your measure of how much you care about the project is how much energy you're putting into it. But their measure is, did you cross all the I's and dot all the T's before you? That's the wrong thing. Cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
And I was going to say, and I didn't, because I didn't even notice that you said it wrong. I was like, I don't even care.
Yeah, exactly. What happens is you present something that you're really proud of, you've put a whole bunch of energy into, you think is great, and the high C says, okay, there's a bunch of I's with no dots. And you're like, oh, what? Really? You can't see my great idea? They literally cannot see how great your idea is because their internal monologue is screaming, there's missing dots. And if there's a missing dot that I can see, what else is missing? Their internal monologue is so loud, they can't hear what you're saying.
And it's valid. It's a valid concern to say, if you can't cross your T's, what else did you miss? That's completely valid. And honestly, too, I do think it's worth noting that a lot of the high Ds that I know care how they look to others a little bit, right? So it's worth noting that this attention to detail, it's going to reduce the noise you get about negativity around what you're working on. And as well, it makes you look like you know what you're doing. It makes you look like you're doing stuff that's good work. So just as a gentle reminder that speed isn't the only measure. There's other measurements about how you're evaluated. And in some cases, you might be able to delegate the detail work. And we recommend you do. Right? Because it's not your skill set. We know, okay, it's frustrating to have to be in the weeds. We know we don't like it either. But we were just talking at the beginning of this call about being in the weeds on a document and an initiative that fried both of our brains in the last 48 hours. I mean, both of us are working on this thing that's really exciting and also super dense to be in the weeds on. And sure, okay, if you're frustrated by being in the weeds, you can feel that the work is less exciting to you than just like moving forward, chunking through it. So if you don't have people to delegate to, try trading, task switching with some colleagues. Ask somebody who is a high C if they'd be willing to check your work in exchange for helping them get started or move forward or make a decision. That could be a way that you could use somebody else's strengths and your own to help the whole team, like the greater good, right? That might be a thing. I asked someone yesterday for help looking at details on something because all that work that we did yesterday to help make sure that we got some polish on our new project, really, honestly, I don't know that I didn't miss some stuff because I would have to do it all again. And it was a couple hours of work. And then to do it again with a new focus probably honestly would take me longer than somebody whose attention to detail is higher than mine. So we're just leveraging our strengths. And I think in a lot of cases, more eyes on something is valuable.
The whole point of teams is that we share our strengths and weaknesses and we make up for each other in our skills. So why not?
Yeah.
So the next one is get feedback.
Which comes from being a part of a team often.
Exactly. So you have the ability to cut through fluff. And when you properly channel that, you can create the clarity that teams need. There's one person on our team who I will tell them, I really want to do this. And they say, and what are you going to do when you have that information? I'm like, oh, yeah, I just want to know. But so having that person to say to me, what are you going to do with it once you know that information is really useful because that person cuts through like, am I just doing this because I'm interested in it rather than it's actually useful to the organization? And the other thing that IDs need to do is learn to control what they say, because sometimes you say things and you don't mean them the way that other people hear them. You can be very short and sharp and clear, and other people hear that as biting or criticism or just the wrong side of your tongue. So you can cut when you don't intend to.
Yeah, a great example is that as a high D, if you're approaching a process redesign, likely your focus is how can we make this as efficient as possible? Because that's us satisfying our need for speed.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, because you have been doing this for probably the majority of your adult life, the answer is pretty obvious to you. So you're ready to change this process right now and make it more efficient. And a high S on the other side of the spectrum will think of stakeholders for whom your changes will have effect. They could see your focus of efficiency as not considerate of other people. And you could instead consult with those people, ask how your proposal will work for them, and introduce it before you make the cuts. Then it's more likely to be accepted. Your redesign is more palatable. The change goes more smoothly, and the result then can be more of what you intended, simply because when you cut things, there's people involved. And if somebody came to you and said, oh, hey, we're cutting this part of your job, you'd say, yeah, I love that. That sounds awesome. That's not how everybody feels. Some people feel fear around that. And as opposed to, oh my gosh, it means I can go do something else that's even more exciting, right? So definitely consider that you may think too much about speed and efficiency and not enough about people as you're doing all this. It's a good idea, right? To find 3 to 5 people from different areas of the business who are willing to give you guidance, especially with different profiles. And this will give you so much more success over the next couple of years, just being able to bounce your ideas off somebody and get that feedback, get that input from others.
What am I not thinking about?
Yeah.
As I barrel forward in my train. Yeah.
Brackets, measuring.
Yes, exactly.
Weight loads, tolerance.
Boring. But learning to ask for and accept feedback from these people. The other piece of it is if you are asking someone, hey, how do you think that meeting went? Or can you tell me about who I'm not thinking about? You have to be willing to hear something that you don't want to hear and to change your behavior. Otherwise, there's no point in doing this. And if there's no point in doing this, you're going to slow your career down. And that's the whole point of this. So you have to be willing to accept the feedback. And hearing it will make all of the conversations and the meetings you have go more smoothly because you say what you think and you tend not to consider feelings as important. Like, we're at work, we're doing a task. How people feel about it is irrelevant. But at least 50% of your colleagues, the high I's and S's, think that feelings are important. And the other 25%, those high C's, they value diplomacy. And so you have 75% of your team probably who have the complete opposite attitude to you about feelings. And they want feelings to be considered. So accepting that and then taking that into account when you communicate makes you so much more successful. And Kate and I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for me as a person who was often surrounded by other profiles in two like very distinct areas, and then seeing that complete difference made it harder for me. Like it almost made me think like, oh, my way is right. My way is better.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the wrong approach, honestly. It's easy to think as a high D that you're practicing listening before responding and you're not being abrupt and still be upsetting the people you work with or rubbing them at least the wrong way and end up with a reputation for being hard to work with. And having people around you who are willing to say, hey, that wasn't great, because they know you'll listen and adapt, is a great thing for your career long term, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment. And I actually have someone in my life who's also a high D, who she and I both can be really straightforward with people. And we have a habit of like nudging each other to say, hey, dude, that was a lot. And if another high D thinks it was a lot, then you've probably jumped that shark. And good news is I've learned this next one, which is to apologize when you've high D'd that shark jump, when you've gone too close to the sun. It's a skill, learn to apologize and notice. It will help you greatly in your career, take you further than the natural tendency to just say, well, they'll get over it. Because as high Ds, we get over it. We're not super impacted often by what people say that sounds harsh. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, got it. So you have to learn that other people feel differently, even if you don't believe us now, okay? You might not, but listen, you need relationships in order to have a successful career. If for no other reason than to call somebody up and say, hey, I need a job.
Mm-hmm.
And this applies even if you're mid-career and you're thinking, gosh, I'm stuck, right? Why? Maybe this is why. And you still have time to make changes. In fact, it's probably a great time to make changes.
Sometimes we think if we drastically change our behavior that people will think we're weird or we're just changing for the sake of it or we're trying to fit in or whatever. Actually, people don't notice if you're a high D and you start being softer and more considerate, because your idea of being softer and more considerate is so far away from what everybody else thinks. Like,
so true.
They will not notice, but they will notice sort of subliminally, and the relationship will change.
Yeah, their experience with you becomes more palatable. I was presenting years ago with someone who was learning to make bigger gestures, and this person's gestures were absolutely minimal. And I said, that's really good. This new gesture that he was using. I said, that's really good. It looks animated. He said, I feel like a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So just what looks normal from the outside, what feels regular to other people can feel really drastic to you. It's not the case that it's drastic. It's probably unnoticeable by others, except that they feel a little more comfortable with you. And that's what we're hoping for here. So don't worry, oh my gosh, this feels like a lot. That's because it's your experience, not because to others it will look that way.
The last one, work on collaboration. This is another word that makes high Ds cruel. So it's skin crawl. But
there's so much time.
There's a reason for this. When executives look at people that they think can be promoted or to lead teams or to lead projects, they are looking for people who can collaborate for a reason. And the reason is no one can do everything alone. Right? That's why we have organizations and teams and so on. It's a group of people working together to do more than one person can do alone. And so it makes perfect sense that an executive who's thinking, who can I promote to be a manager, is looking for someone who can demonstrate their ability to collaborate.
If you don't believe us, perfect example, budget. As you move up the organization, you're fighting for budget for your initiatives, for your ideas, for your team, for your part of the organization. You are going to have to horse trade, collaborate, whatever you want to call it, to get the budget that you need. And that's probably the most basic high D example of we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. That is, I think, resonant with high Ds that, hey, if nothing else, you're going to have good enough relationships that you can get the budget you want.
Exactly.
all that energy that you have to get stuff done really won't work if you don't have the budget, if you don't have the approval, which that's the next step. And all we want to suggest to you is that you use the same drive that helps you accomplish your goals strategically in relationship building, not just in checking the box, but getting better relationships. Instead of thinking of people as an obstacle in your way, try thinking of them as another task to achieve success in. Try thinking of them as another challenge to master. Hey, I'm going to make these 6 people be my friend.
Yes. High I's and S's are just like, why would you do that? But for a high D, it makes perfect sense. Make it a task to be done, break it down, and remember, I'm going to have a conversation with this person. I'm going to remember to ask them about their children and all of that stuff. And whether you know it or not, you are being watched to see how well you can work with others. And what they say about working with you matters.
Yeah.
And those other people are not all high Ds. Right? Patience with processes that build consensus is not your natural strength. Apart from anything, it slows stuff down. But you can do it with practice. Like, promise, because we've tried. And one way we found as high Ds to make it easier is to focus on the outcome that you're trying to get to. I try and keep in mind, okay, the thing I want to achieve is this. And to get there, I have to get this person on board. And therefore, I have to have 3 meetings with them where I explain why I want to do this and how it's going to happen and how I'm going to measure it and all of that. By being patient and bringing other people along with you and having everybody on the same page, you are so much more likely to get what you want. And for that reason alone, as a high D, it's worth practicing that skill. It gets you more of what you want.
Mm-hmm. Think of and then execute on build collaboration as a skill. High Ds don't need any encouragement to take charge and lead. It just happens without us trying. Sometimes it's better to be the supporting character as opposed to just being in charge. And learning when to lead and when to support means stepping back, asking what gets me to where I want to go the fastest. Sometimes that's collaborating. Teach yourself to ask, what do you think? Before you move forward of the people around you, ask them that. Even if you have no intention of taking their opinion into account, sometimes just asking them helps.
Yeah, you can tell them, yeah, I considered your thoughts. I considered them and I dismissed them because they were irrelevant to my considering what I want to do. But I asked you and I considered them. Just doing that actually really helps. And surprisingly, you may well find that other people have opinions and thoughts and ideas which are actually quite good and help you get to where you want to go. I didn't believe that when I started doing this, but I found out afterwards.
It does.
Yeah. Adjust your communication style for the different styles. So again, this isn't disingenuous. We're not talking about being inauthentic. It's more akin to talking differently to the different people you talk to in your life. You don't talk tech to the people that don't understand tech. You don't use internal language and all those abbreviations with customers because they don't understand what you're saying. So if you're communicating more like a high C to a high C, it's just making your communication more effective by speaking a language that they understand more easily.
Yeah.
And of course, we have podcasts about how to do this, and the MTDISC product gives you a whole bunch of pages of how to do that. If you take the profile, we tell you how to change your communication to work better with the other styles. So there's plenty of ways to do that, which we're not going to go into here because that would make the podcast really long. But it's really simple changes often. If you're emailing a high S saying, hi, how are you? Makes all the difference.
You can make a template for that too, which I may have in my email. Of course. Just a thought.
It's efficient.
Yeah, of course it is. And it comes across nicely. And it doesn't have typos because I wrote it and then spell checked it. So it's cool. It works on all levels, which brings us to, this may be the hardest. You got to let other people contribute to your projects. You got to get people involved. If you want to get promoted, you have to learn that you can't do everything yourself as much as you'd love to, and you believe yourself to be a force of nature. Other people's ideas and methods aren't worse than yours. All the water ends up in the ocean. It's going to be okay. A lot of times, the way something is achieved doesn't matter to you, right? As long as it's on time. So perhaps there's an opportunity to let them do it their way and hopefully keep them also on agenda, on deadline, I guess. You will find over time that you are more successful this way. And you might even discover a situation where somebody else's idea is better than yours. It could happen.
It could happen.
It could happen.
But it won't happen unless you start trying to let people.
Right.
High Ds want to achieve their goals. And as High Ds, we support you in that. Absolutely. And sometimes the way to achieve them is not to go for the goal in the straightest line possible, but take some slower roads that allow other people to express themselves. So learning these strategies and implementing them will significantly increase the speed of your career growth. And that's what we want for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone. That's all for this week. Next week, we'll be talking about higher highs. Bye, everyone.